Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Thursday, the 5th of May. Before I continue, I just want to shout out to my sister Anna and her husband Oakwin. Happy anniversary, guys. It was a big day 21 years ago in Trinity, Mitchell in Ontario. I love you both. I hope you have a good day. Okay, that being said, I need to add a disclaimer to the beginning of this Church at Home. First of all, I am not speaking on behalf of the Anglican Church. I am not speaking on behalf of my parish, my congregations. I am not even speaking to you as a priest insofar as I am able to sort of, take off one hat and put on the other. I'm speaking to you as a woman and speaking to you as a concerned woman at that. It is not, really any of my business what happens below, the 49th parallel or whatever that is that separates Canada from the United States. Except the fact that we are so closely interlinked with an open border that the impact of politics and life and culture wars in the States does indeed tend to impact life up here. If not immediately, it usually has some impact in some way. So I cannot ignore what is happening right now, what is happening this week with the Supreme Court of the United States and the issues regarding abortion. First of all, as I said, I'm speaking as a woman. As a married woman who has no children and has never been pregnant, I cannot speak for how any woman who has found herself pregnant may feel and may change how they feel or whose opinions might change and things like that. I can't speak for that. I will tell you up front that for people, for women in general, I am pro-choice. I cannot get into the mind of another person to determine the impact that carrying a child, especially a child that they may not be prepared to give birth and give life to. And when I say give life, I don't mean simply, have it enter the world and hello, I'm here. I'm talking about read its stories and spank its bum if necessary when it's being a lippy 6-year-old, or teach it the new math, or be there to hold when a heart is broken, or that first crush, or when the baseball goes through Mr. McGillicuddy's front plate window and the world's about to end. Giving life to a child is more than simply carrying a child in your body for 9 months. So I cannot speak to that. What I can speak to is what it is to be a woman and what it is to wonder about these things. And for me, I am pro-choice. I believe that people should have the right to have say over their own bodies, that another person, another governmental body should not have the right to come in and determine what is happening to you. The same way I don't believe that governments had the right to sterilize people because they were mentally retarded back in the day, or that children should be taken away from their parents because of their culture. Things like that they need to be schooled, like residential schools. I think that governments should not have a say in the very specific things like that. Generally speaking, there are all kinds of cases where it's important that we have children's aid or children's protective services and things like that. But just as a general rule, I think that people should be able to govern their own bodies. That being said, I think if I were to have found myself in a situation where I was pregnant and unable, or feeling that I was unable to be able to give that child a life, to be able to raise that child, or to carry that child to term in a healthy manner, without permanent damage to myself, psychologically or biologically, then who knows what decision I would make. But so personally, I think I would be, for me, pro-life. But for any, just in general, I think pro-choice. Women should have the right to determine what happens to their bodies. Whole other discussion about the biological dad and things like that, a topic for another day. But just in the generics, women should have the right, I believe, to determine what happens to their body within a reasonable amount of time. Now, for me, this isn't really even about abortion rights. For me, this is about the rights of a person as an individual, as a person. If I were to say to you, men should not have the right to have vasectomies, how would you respond? I think people would probably laugh. Some people would get quite, like, hey, maybe that's a good idea. But really, if we're thinking about it, if we're talking about abortion as the, a person ending a life or using it as an inappropriate form of Planned Parenthood or conception, a form of stopping conception from happening, or what comes of conception, then isn't having a vasectomy for a man, doesn't that fly in the face of that right there? It's birth control at its finest. As far as I can tell, a vasectomy is the only reason for a vasectomy is so that a man cannot impregnate a woman. So maybe if the government is stating, if the Supreme Court wants to argue that women do not have the right to have an abortion, maybe because it's not constitutional to say that they do have the right to have one, then maybe maybe the Americans should open up the conversation about, is it constitutionally right for men to be able to have vasectomies? Okay, once you stop laughing at what I just said, think about that. What would happen if the government or some branch of the government in the United States or even in Canada were to come down and say that men were not allowed by law to make a decision about their own bodies? Whole different response, don't you think? I don't think that it would be necessarily 5-4 on the Supreme Court if that was the case. I think there would be a significant shift in how people understood that. And now, yes, I am being silly. I am being I'm really paring this down to bare bones. But however, what I'm trying to say is that this is not just about a fetus. We're talking about the ability of a woman to have the right to make their own decision. Not every woman who investigates an abortion clinic has an abortion. Not every woman who has an abortion has done so because they're just, a lazy welfare bum who didn't bother to get on the pill or forgot to take it. There are many women who have abortions because they are physically going to be compromised by carrying a child to term. Possibly that child may not live, may not make it to term. I know of women, the people that I've known, who have had to carry a child who has died in utero and had to carry to term because of the danger to their own body and the pain and suffering that has caused them. What about a woman or a child, a young girl who has been raped or is a victim of incest? I keep thinking about an interview I saw the other day on TV of a 16-year-old from Ukraine who had a Russian soldier who came into her town, came into her home and told her to take off her clothes and sleep with him. And if she refused, he would just come back with 20 soldiers. What if she were to become pregnant? Would we be saying to her, you must carry that monster's child to term? And if we do say that, then what happens to that child? Do we expect that 16-year-old to raise that child conceived in hate, conceived in a war crime? And who would that child go to then? If that little girl, that 16-year-old, were to give that child up for adoption, who would take that child on? We have issues enough in our own countries about how many children don't have parents. What are we saying when we say that a woman doesn't have the right to choose for herself? I think this is nothing to do with a fetus, not really. I think this has a lot to do with the fact that women are people too. Just as if we said, vasectomy should be outlawed because it's not a constitutional right to have a vasectomy, men would stand up en masse and say, you don't have the right to tell me, a man, what to do with my own body. Why is it wrong for women to do the same thing? We are living in a world that seems to be moving backwards, heading toward totalitarianism, heading toward that place where one man has the right to tell millions of other people's what they can do, where they can live, what they can do for work, how they have to think, how they have to vote. If we continue down that road, what will happen to our daughters? What will happen to our sons? Women are not chattel. Women are not possessions. Women should not ever have had to fight for the vote. They should not ever have had to fight for a voice in government. They should not ever have had to fight to get medical care. Because that is what essentially an abortion is a form of medical care. We should not have to fight for the very things that a man, regardless of who he is and wherever he is on the spectrum of pro-life, pro-choice, conservative, liberal, whatever, men, as far as I'm aware, don't have to fight for the very rights that women are still having to fight for. Just because the States has a female vice president, just because Canada has had one female prime minister and now has one female, first minister, or a minister who is I apologize to my Canadian citizens. my mind is not thinking straight. But Chrystia Freeland, her role in the government is powerful. She is second only to Prime Minister Trudeau. Just because we have a woman in that place does not mean that the role of women is secure. We are watching our neighbors to the south roll the role of women backward into a different century, certainly into a different age. And that's not okay. We are children of God, and we must learn to respect the dignity of every person, whether they are male or female, or they are trans or bi, or whatever it is. We need to look not at their physical outward appearance, what we see if we see them in the locker room. We need to look into the heart of who they are and see them as someone who has a complex and multifaceted layers of who they are and how they make decisions and how those decisions will affect their life and their future and their family. We need to get to that point where we can recognize that whoever the person is standing before us, whoever they are, that they are worth listening to and worth understanding. And right now, the Supreme Court of the United States doesn't sound like they're doing that at all. And so I do not speak on behalf of the church. I don't even speak to you as a priest. I am speaking to you as Rachel, who cares and whose heart is breaking to think of the women who have gone before me, who have had to make decisions about whether or not to have an abortion. For women who have carried a child to term, even though they were raped, or if this was a product of an abusive situation. Women who have given a child up for adoption and wondered, how has that impacted their life? And those women who have made the decision to go forward and have an abortion. At the very least, for the health and welfare of the mind, body, and soul of the women who in the future will seek out abortions, it needs to be kept legal, because abortions will not stop. Just as the world's oldest profession, prostitution, doesn't stop because it's illegal. Abortions will not stop just because they're made illegal. It just means that abortions will be hard to come by, and people will die. People will become infected. People will be hurt. Women who choose not to have a child now may end up, because of a botched abortion, be unable to have children in the future, because we are removing their ability to have a safe procedure. That is not okay. This is, in my mind, a ridiculous argument. Generations of women have grown up in the States under Roe v. Wade, and the world did not fall apart. The world has not gone to hell in a handbasket. women have been able to thrive and become vice presidents of the United States and CEOs of company and teachers of children who become presidents of the United States and wonderful mothers to children that they want. We should not have the right to tell them that they don't have the right to make a decision about their own bodies. And if I have offended you, I am sorry. That is not my intention. And I imagine there will be people who will disagree with me completely. And I welcome your disagreement, because part of who I am as a woman is someone who can understand and recognize and deal with and grapple with different ideas and different opinions, and that doesn't hurt me. It may even make me stronger. It may make me grow in my understanding. So if you think I am wrong, let me know. If you think I'm right, let me know. Let's have a conversation. But let us not unilaterally make the decision that one group of people doesn't have the right to make a decision at all. That is wrong. What I do ask of you is that you pray. Pray for the Supreme Court in the United States. Pray for all of those people who are running for election this coming fall. Pray for all of the people who are really struggling for what this decision will mean in their lives, and what the decisions already made in some states will mean, what the decision made below the border might have impact, how it might impact above the border here in Canada. Because it will. It always does. So together, let's not fight one another. Let's not denigrate one another. Let's not treat the other part of our population as if they aren't worth anything. But rather, let's lift up men and women and people of fluid gender, like every person that has the breath of life in them, who can walk and talk and reason. And even if they can't, let us honor them. And let us pray for them and with them that good decisions will be made, and clear and level heads will prevail. And that together we might figure out what the real purpose of this particular decision is about. Because I don't think it's really about abortion. I think it's about power. I think it's about some people who are some men, possibly, who are threatened by the idea that women have a say too. So, on a lighter note, should we suggest to the states that maybe vasectomies are unconstitutional? Who knows? Maybe the world will change. Have a great day, and God bless you.